again. Please do, as I just said, please do let us know what you think of the session here in the chat, or afterwards, or during, on Twitter. Use the hashtag Futurefest. So I've muted everybody, and at the end we'll have a question and answer session. So if you want to ask a question, you'll have to unmute yourself, but that's easy, and we can get to that at the end. Meanwhile, if you want to put any questions in the chat bar, that's fine too, and we will pick them up at the end. So we've got Gary here with us today. Gary Littledyke joined the Digital Place team, which is my team. So my name's Penny Siddle. I should have said that at the beginning, maybe. My name's Penny Siddle. I'm from the Digital Place team based at Dorset Council, and Gary joined us in April this year to manage some of the projects as part of the 5G Rural Dorset programme, and that's what he's here to talk to us about today. So Gary, without further ado, I'm going to mute my mic and let you get on with it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Penny. Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to run through about 12 slides, and I'm hopefully going to do two things for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about 5G in context and tell you a little bit about what 5G is. I will just add a note of caution there. I'm certainly not a 5G expert, but I'll give it my best. And if you've got any questions at the end, I'll try and answer them for you. So as Penny was saying there, I joined the council back in April during lockdown, so a slightly strange experience for me. But nonetheless, the project is getting up to pace now, and we're kicking on well with starting to deploy some 5G technology in rural parts of Dorset. So my background, first, I'm ex-British Army Royal Signals and Foreign and Commonwealth Office. A thread of connectivity through my career. Moved down to the lovely Lyme Regis about 18 months ago, and joined the council, as Penny said, back in April. So as I say, I've got 12 slides. I'm going to start off talking a little bit about 5G, just to put it all into context for you, for those perhaps that don't know some of this. 4 graphics here. Top left is a little bit of a journey from where we started many years ago. I'm old enough to remember it. Back in the day when a phone was the size of a brick, and we moved through the generations from 1G through 2G, and then we started to get data connectivity with 3G and 4G, and now there's all the hype about all the wonderful things that 5G are going to bring as we start to roll that out. I'm a little bit biased, I know. I'm very excited about the potential for 5G in the future. It's really going to change the world for many of us, or for all of us actually, truth be known. And I'm equally excited that in Dorset we've got the appetite and the ambition to be part of the change that's starting to take place now. So the top graphic there on the left starts to tell you something about that journey, when it happened, and some of the features that you're getting from 5G. The top right then starts to talk about 5G in the context that, yes, it's faster than 4G, but it's so much more than that. And some of these changes are things that make it so suitable for some of the functionality and the features that will lead to new use cases that you can't do with 4G. So I'm not going to talk about all of them in depth, but some of the key ones to me to pick out: yes, it's faster. Some of the other key changes are you can accommodate many more devices. So with 5G, you can start to have lots of connected devices all over the place on the same cell site. So it's able to support many more devices, and that's important as you start to see we have more and more devices out there. It uses spectrum, the frequency that's used by mobile connectivity, much more efficiency. Spectrum is a finite resource. We can't just make more when we need it. So using it carefully and efficiently is really important. Obviously, now the environment is really important, and one of the other factors is that it's much more efficient in terms of its power usage. So you don't use as much energy with a 5G base station as you would do with 3G and 4G. Now, it's some of you perhaps on the call who know more than I do even will say, yes, but aren't we going to need more 5G base stations than we do 4G? And in an urban area, that may well be true, but certainly in rural areas where we're using lower frequencies, actually it doesn't quite fit in the same way. So it is true that it's more efficient, and we won't necessarily need more base stations in more rural areas as we roll it out. Final thing I wanted to touch on that top right graph there is latency. So latency is the time it takes for something to happen when you push a button on your mobile phone. And for things like augmented reality and virtual reality, it's really important that when you try to do something, it happens quickly. So 5G has much lower latency than 3G and 4G, so you can start to experience AR and VR type events on your handset and on headsets as well. So again, these features all support some of the elements of 5G that are going to make it really exchanging and, excuse the pun, but effectively a game changer. I like the slide on the bottom, the graphic on the bottom left in particular, because it starts to make this real. So for me, if you want to download on 3G a video, a film, shall we say, it could take you up to 26 hours. On 5G, it could be as quick as sort of 3.5 seconds. And of course, on 4G, even it's quicker than 3G at 6 minutes. But you can see the leap forward in terms of the speed of being able to download things on 5G when compared to previous generations. And then the last graphic on this slide, again, puts things into context. We live in a world where there are more and more connected devices with each day and each week that pass. We passed the point back in somewhere between 2003 and 2010, looking at the graphic, where there were more connected devices in the world than there were people. And in 2020, we passed the point where there were more than 6 devices per person. And that's one of those facts that you hear and you stop and think, wow, really? Does that make sense? Apparently it does, and there are more than 6 devices per person in the world today. So all of this wonderful new technology is great, but what are we going to use it for? This slide here talks about a number of the different use cases, the ways that 5G might be used in the future. One of the things that strikes me here that I will just hang around a little bit and talk about a little bit more is the fact that with 3G and 4G, traditionally, most of the revenue for the operators comes from the users of the handsets, the general public who pay a monthly subscription. There might be employees of businesses who use their handsets to communicate, receive emails and that kind of thing. And that's about it. 5G opens up so many new opportunities that there are going to be verticals, as we refer to them, that form that today might have a different way of doing things. So if you've looked at any of this in the news or online, you might have picked up talk about things like Industry 4.0. These are new ways of doing things in the world of manufacturing. If you've heard Digby's talk, you'll have heard a little bit about smart farming and how agriculture can benefit from some of the technologies in 5G. There are healthcare and social care applications. There is smart mobility, being able to travel, and there are so many different areas that 5G technology is going to start to change for good. That it's going to really start to change the world that we live in significantly over the coming years. There's so much more I could do an hour. I could do 3 hours talking just about this slide, but I'm conscious we haven't got a huge amount of time, so I'm going to move on and talk one last little bit about the context, and then we'll get into some of the detail about the project itself. So all of these devices connected everywhere start then to lead us towards a future where we might live in a smart place. You hear a lot talked about smart cities. I prefer the term smart place because I like to make the point that us rural folk can be smart as well. It's not just the city dwellers that can be smart. So as I promised, I'm going to talk now a little bit about the 5G Rural Dorset project. So this is a groundbreaking research and development programme. It's part funded by the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, and it's one of their testbed and trials projects. These are designed to unearth across the UK these use cases and provide evidence for where it's worth investing money, what's going to change the world as we move forward, help reduce costs and make us more efficient and effective in the future. The key for this, for me to take away, is that we're doing this in Dorset for a number of reasons, but the key strapline is if we can do it in Dorset, then we can do it anywhere. Moving on to this slide here, there's there's a question about why we're doing it in Dorset. So connectivity is an issue, that there are no motorways in Dorset, and so it makes digital connectivity even more important. A lack of digital connectivity restricts our economy. You know, in the times ahead, as we come out of the COVID situation, it's going to become even more important, and we've seen it highlighted as we've gone through COVID, where those that are disadvantaged have been even more so disadvantaged. Children have not been able to study as well at home without connectivity as some of their fellow students have, perhaps, who have had better connectivity. It's estimated that that this gap in Dorset in connectivity is significant. It's, you know, over £200,000. Sorry, £200,000 a year in terms of the gap between us and a more connected area. We've got an older population. I believe on average there are sort of 7,000 people in Dorset who are living with dementia, and that's a significant number. The older population means that the spend from the local authority on social care, again, is significant. Half of our budget each year is on health and social care. And there are, of course, pockets of deprivation as well in coastal areas around Weymouth and the like. A beautiful part of the country, one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites along our Jurassic Coast. People visit it every year, but it can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing and you get yourself into trouble. And so these are some of the things that we're looking at on the project. 5G facilitates new approaches, different ways of doing things, helping to reduce costs and freeing up time for people. My personal view, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation in terms of mobile operators and their investment in building mobile coverage. They won't build it unless they see a return. And of course, in rural areas like Dorset, there aren't as many people to use their services. And so the use case for them isn't as compelling without these additional sectors I've talked about to help to build the business case for them. The UK's got an ambition to be a leading country in terms of the 5G rollout. And of course, in Dorset, we want to be part of that move as well. And so we're trying to create opportunities across Dorset to find examples of where we can be part of these exciting projects moving forward. So how are we going to do it? Well, you can see here, there's a number of strands here. We're looking at testing innovative approaches to do things in a new way, bringing connectivity to areas that previously perhaps haven't been easy to connect. We're looking at how we can use infrastructure that might already be in place. It might be existing telecoms infrastructure, it might be ducting for utilities, it might be various different things like that. We're looking at possibly building fewer masts and using new technologies to make that possible. So I mentioned earlier there are some factors about 5G that might make it better than 4G in some ways. People might say, well, hang on a minute, why are we building 5G connectivity when we haven't got working 4G? And the answer might be that there's an opportunity to leap over 3 and 4G in some areas that have got poor connectivity and go straight to a 5G solution. Well, that's all I'm going to say on that slide. I think I'm going to move forward now and talk a little bit about the partners on the project. So you can see there's a number of large organisations, the likes of Vodafone. We've got some academic partners as well in the project, Bournemouth University. We're working with a number of SMEs that you can see on the slide there, and also the satellite application as Catapult. Number of supported partners, so some of these partners are more involved in others. So clearly along the coastline, we're working closely with the RNLI and the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, and there are various other partners that you can see they're involved in the project as well. I'm going to move on now to some of the detail about the different work packages involved in the project. So we're aiming to deliver 4 separate test beds. You can see each of them there in summary. There's the Future of Food, Innovation Accelerator, Rural Business Accelerator, and the Connected Coast. And I'm going to talk about each one of these in turn now. So the first here in the north of Dorset and down in Portland is the Future of Food. Here we're looking at 5G connectivity in agriculture and aquaculture as a way to help to increase productivity and reduce environmental impact. So one of the examples I often like to look at in this is there's been some evidence that historical ways of treating farmland, you might put lots of chemicals down, pesticides and that kind of thing, onto a piece of land, onto a farmland, and it's kind of done in a way where it all gets treated equally, irrespective of what's needed. There are now techniques where you can take high quality images of land. You can look at the condition of that land and then spot treat the areas that need to be treated. And that means that you're saving money because you're not buying as much of the chemical to put down in the first place. But then, of course, there are significant environmental benefits in that those chemicals are not able to leach through into the water supply. So that's an example of some of the things that you might want to be able to do in this kind of a project. So various other elements of the project are being looked at. We're working with a number of partners that are going to be bringing these innovative solutions, and we're going to test how they work and what difference they can make to the development of farming techniques in Dorset. The second one I wanted to talk about here was the Innovation Accelerator. This is based in the Dip near Wareham, Dorset Innovation Park. There are a couple of elements to this. So there's an indoor network within the building, which will be a commercial Vodafone 5G network. But then also recently the Defence Innovation Centre has been declared as being built, and that's going to be built early next year. That's going to allow innovation in defence technologies with close collaboration also with marine and security partners to come and test how 5G might be used in some of those environments. Area here is a rural business accelerator located on the Lulworth estate. This is a location for Camp Festival once a year, and we're looking with Vodafone how you can use 5G technology to deliver things like fixed wireless access. So this is the ability to use wireless connectivity as an alternative to fixed fibre connectivity for people in the area. And there's a number of other use cases that have been looked at as well. Some examples might be things like cashless parking, where you just can't, you can't connect without having the next generation technology, because there's nothing there at the moment. And we're looking at how we can use some of these advanced methods to try different things. Connected coast down on along the coast down there. We've got working with people like the RNLI, Maritime Coast Guard Agency, as well as the General Lighthouse Authority, to look at how we can provide specifically connectivity. Some areas where at the moment there's absolutely nothing at all. In areas, for example, you've got mobile phone sites along the headland, if you like, where the signal is hidden, if you like, from underneath. You can't get into the areas under the cliffs. So what this is doing is allowing for things like digital signage to be used, to allow people like the RNLI to display information to people who might be visiting an area like Lulworth Cove or Durdle Door, to let them know about tide times or any other hazards that might be there. Also is going to allow us to measure the number of people that are in the area, so we can trigger alerts to perhaps give advance warning to the RNLI that are a more than average number of people in an area. So those kind of things are the kind of use cases we're looking to explore. Last thing I wanted to talk about is the asset hub element of the project. I talked earlier about asset reuse and how that's really important. So what we're doing here is, instead of building new technology, new masts everywhere, we're looking at how we can reuse existing assets. So the challenges that you face when you're trying to roll out this kind of infrastructure will be around things like getting planning permission. They'll be around providing backhaul and power to the site. All of this can be made much easier if you can reuse existing assets in these kind of areas. So we're looking at how we can pull together some of this information, make it available, and help to reduce the cost. Of course, this is a barrier for mobile operators when they're coming to roll out infrastructure in very rural areas. Making it more cost effective for them to do so will help to improve coverage in areas like Dorset. That was pretty much, I cantered through that fairly quickly. Pretty much all I wanted to cover for now. All I would say is, there's information on our website, which you can see there. And also you can follow us on Twitter. But if you've got any questions for now, feel free to fire away.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gary. That's great. I would suggest, if you want to ask a question, you put your hand up, and I'll see that and come to you. There's lots there. It's a huge project, and we had a whole session this morning just on one aspect of it. So you've covered lots and lots of ground. Digby was talking about the farming elements this morning, and that was really interesting. And tomorrow, one of our partners in this, Gordon Fong from Kimsel, is talking about the Future Connected Dorset. So not just about this 5G programme, but about other connectivity projects that he knows about or is involved in, and what that can mean for Dorset. So if you want to catch that, that's at tomorrow, Thursday at 11:30. Do sign up for that. Meanwhile, have we got any questions?
We've got hello from Gordon.
Hello from Gordon, yeah. Colin's got a question. Colin, do you want to unmute yourself and ask that question about how we could use 5G to help avoid repeating the scenes at Durdledore this summer? Do you want to say a bit more about that yourself?
Yeah, hi. I was just mindful of the thing we saw this summer where lots of people came down to Dorset, which is obviously something that we would ordinarily encourage, but perhaps not at the moment, where it's better to not have lots of people moving across the country. But I just wonder what 5G, I think giving information to people on digital signage is fantastic. It's a great idea. But how could 5G help beyond that, maybe by managing those kinds of situations in the future? It seems there's quite a lot of possibility there. I wondered a bit more about that, really.
Thanks, Colin. So, there are lots of potential opportunities for 5G to be used to change things. On this project in particular, there are a number of things we're doing, and the digital signage is one of them. There are opportunities. I mean, one of the examples I give that is possible is if you think about what happened when we had all of those people arriving at Durdledore earlier in the year. If it had been possible to do one of two things: one, to alert the emergency services that there were an inordinate amount of people heading towards that location, then they could perhaps have had first responders in the area. The RNLI might have been able to have people in the water if they thought that there might have been an incident likely to happen. But I think more importantly, the potential to warn people who are getting in their car in Surrey or Manchester or wherever it might be to head to Durdledore, expecting they're going to get there and it's going to be lovely and they're only going to be one of a handful of people sitting on the beach. If you can warn people, that an area they're heading to is very, very busy before they leave, they might change direction and go somewhere else. They might decide it's not a good time to come. So I think there's a whole range of things that can be done by joining up, not just using technology, but by starting to combine 5G with other technologies. So AI, AR and VR and all these other next generation technologies. There will be different ways of doing things that we're not doing today. Does that make sense, Colin?
It does. Thank you.
Good.
Hi, we've got another question. R. Chilvers, I'm sorry, R. I don't know what your name is, but if you'd like to ask your question, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. It's Rupa Chilvers. I was wondering about what you said about the potential for use cases, and if you've come across anything exciting for the health and care sector in your work.
I'm awfully sorry, I didn't catch your first name there, sorry.
It's Rupa.
Thank you for the question, really good question. So some of our colleagues on some of the other 5G testbed projects have focused on health and social care. Up in Liverpool, for example, they did some really interesting work around how you can help people to stay at home for longer before having to move into a care home. And of course, with the challenges we face in Dorset, that there will be significant benefits from us being able to do similar things. This particular project is not focused on health and social care, but there absolutely are many, many things that can be done with 5G. And it is one of the sectors that's getting a lot of attention around how that can be used to improve quality of life for people, make sure that people are able to stay at home for longer. And actually, interestingly, it can also potentially be used combined with things like robotics to address loneliness. So that, you know, you might see, if you look out there, there is some information about some projects are starting to give people sort of little robotic pets that they can talk to, and that kind of thing. So I think there are some fascinating opportunities to address some of those issues, definitely.
Good question, Rupa. Thank you very much. Thanks, Gary. Pete, you had one. Do you want to come in to do with the cost model for the connected coast and whether it could be commercially viable? I think was your question. You ask it.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Penny. Yeah, I was just thinking, you mentioned connectivity in areas of Dorset is poor because of the challenging commercial model around it, and I think that's probably replicated across the UK. So do you think some of the use cases here will change that that commercial model sufficiently to encourage and make it sustainable for mobile network operators to deploy new mast sites and improve that coverage?
That's Pete, thanks for the question. That's the $65 million question, isn't it? And I suspect part of the reason that DCMS are funding these projects, I think the answer is it has to be incremental. I tend to look at it and think, you know, there's probably no one silver bullet here that's going to solve the equation for the MNOs. But I think it's possible if you stack them. You know, there's a term stackable use cases where incrementally they might each not stand alone on their own to make it commercially viable. But if you can use the same infrastructure to deliver 15 different use cases to 5 different verticals in an area, then the combined value of them might start to reach the tipping point at which the operators say, hang on a minute, maybe it is worth us investing. You know, you look at things like Industry 4.0, where historically organisations would have paid for their own on-site communication system. Historically, that might have been a paging system. Today, there might be different systems they use, but they cost money to install and they cost money to maintain. Some of the features, in fact, one I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about 5G around things like network slicing, mean that you can deliver different service levels using the same infrastructure. What I mean by that is you can have a mission critical system, perhaps, that's operating on the same infrastructure as another network, where you can guarantee availability to certain users who could be paying for that guarantee of availability at a different rate to commercial users. So it allows the mobile operators to differentiate the same network and generate different amounts of revenue from different client types. So I think there is potential. The jury's out at the moment, and there will be some. I mean, one of the benefits of this kind of project, it's not all about proving the positive answers. Sometimes it's about demonstrating that actually, even with some of the evidence you're finding on a project like this, it's not going to be sustainable and commercially viable. And that's just as much a valid outcome as it is to find something that's positive and going to contribute. So I think the jury's out. Pete, good question. Don't know the answer.
Yeah, thanks. No, thanks for that. I mean, I like the phrase stackable use cases. I think that's a really nice term. And I always think when people refer to Industry 4.0, I always think of Society 4.0 actually, because I'm a dad of small kids at the end of the day. You know, if you can stick a phone in front of their face for half an hour with some something like Peppa Pig or whatever, the sanity gain you get back from that is invaluable. And there's things like that are less tangible in terms of economic boost, but they're things that society wants and demands, and we kind of crave in the modern world that are enabled by some of these other use cases. So thanks for that.
And you refer there to something really, really important, Pete, as well. It's not just about the commercial use case here. There is obviously public good, and there's a lot of opportunity here to make life better for people. So I don't think the mobile operators, particularly in rural areas, will ever fund all of this on their own. But what we may be able to do is provide evidence for government to justify further intervention. And the combination of that intervention from government and increased investment from operators hopefully will get us further along the road that we need to go down.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks, Pete, for that for that question. We've got a nice conversation going on here between two people who I don't know at all, Ben and Anthony. And I wonder if one of you would like to step forward and, well, Ben, there's quite a lot of acronyms there. 5G RIT, 5G Encode for rural and industry. Do you want to just pop in and explain what some of those acronyms mean and what you're talking about for the benefit of those of us who don't understand?
Hello, yeah, so Ben Ash, I'm with IP Access, which is a Mavenir company. So we are manufacturers of 2G, 3G, 4G and 5G cells for telecoms. We've recently got involved with the 5G Encode project, which is a DCMS funded project led by Zeta Networks in Bristol to show how smart factories can benefit from 5G. So Zeta is a open network orchestration software, but they're using our cells to show that you can replace all of the wiring in factories to make them reconfigurable and wireless using pseudo 5G technologies.
Thanks for that. That's helpful. And Anthony, did you want to pop in with? You've shared some slides and so on. Do you want to pop in with a bit of an explanation of your involvement and what you're doing, or not? It's up to you. No. He has shared some slides, though, which might well be of interest to people. Any more questions from anybody? Comments, additions, anything you'd like to say? Gary, would you like to wrap up any more?
Yeah, so just really to thank everybody for their time to come and join us. As I say, we're about 6 months in now to a 2-year project. We're just in the process of planning applications for sites. So it's a really exciting time for the project. I mentioned earlier there about the website. If you are interested in finding out about what's happening on the project as we move forward, we're going to be doing regular updates, sessions like this perhaps, but certainly newsletters. So if you register there, your interest, we'll be able to update you and keep in touch.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much then, Gary. A final reminder, pop your comments in the chat, whether you've enjoyed it, what you've got out of it. We'd love to know, or pop it on Twitter, hashtag Futurefest. There's a whole day more of activity tomorrow. Don't forget Gordon's session at 11:30 in the morning, and also Matt and Aidan's behind the scenes in their camper vans at 8 o'clock, also worth dropping in and finding the latest festival news there. But otherwise, thank you very much indeed for coming and sharing your thoughts on 5G. Thank you, Gary, very much for giving us that presentation and telling us what's going on in the 5G Rural Dorset project. Enjoy your afternoon, everybody, and see you at the next session. Cheerio.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you. That's good. Looks like some people are going to be getting in touch with you, Gary. That's good.